What up? What up? What's up, Mr. Tony?
Hey Sean, how's it going?
Good, man. All right, man. So we back at it again, man, with our lunch and learns. We had a great time a few months ago, and I said that we'd come back and talk about the work that you do, man. And I already work with fathers, and I always want to bring people the latest information about child support, and not just child support, but engaging with your children and the work of Friend of the Court, man. And there's a lot of rules that are changing. There's a lot of advocacy going on and taking place, and I just wanted to bring you back on, man, because I know you'd be one of the best persons to answer this question, man. Because a lot of times, Tony, where I sit, man, working with the fathers, man, a lot of times moms will say, "Yeah, I understand you working with this joker. He hasn't been around in 10 years, and now he want to be super dad." And listen, I get it, bro. I totally get it. And the work that we do as far as helping them with their child support and parenting education, and now moving into domestic violence and supervised visitation. But Tony, a lot of times, man, people when they think of the Friend of the Court, man, and I'm be honest, me too. I never had an experience with the Friend of the Court. Because I've been blessed to be with my wife and our children, but some people have had bad experiences, right? And my question to you is, it's like, why have you guys have gotten such a bad rap from where you sit? Because I know we do a lot of work together, and I know here in Genesee County, I know that you are an advocate. Number one, to do your job and to serve families, but you have definitely provided a lot of resources and support, if it was manpower, to making sure that the families, in specifically in this area, receive all the resources that they can get, as far as you guys can go. So from where you sit is with the child support, service. Like, why is there such a bad rap with you guys? First of all, before we get into our other areas.
So I think one of the biggest issues is maybe just not really understanding what the role of the friend of the court is, right? And I think this is one of the things that, and you and I've worked on this a lot, and it's one of those things that we continue to want to work on, including doing sessions like this, right? Is educating the families that we serve about what the real role of the friend of the court is and what we can do and what we can't do. If you think when you see the name friend of the court, because it has friend in it, sometimes people think that we might be an advocate for one parent or the other, and that's just not true. So our role is as friend of the court is that we're the enforcement and administrative arm of the circuit court, right? So we work for family court judges to enforce those court orders for them, right? So we enforce custody, parenting time, and child support orders, right? So that's the role that we play at the for the court is to enforce the court's orders. So when what can happen a lot of times is somebody will say, well, they'll think that we can do certain things that we can't, right? And this is where I think a lot of the frustration comes in, is where somebody will say, well, you knew that I lost my job. Why didn't you stop charging me support? Well, because we enforce court orders. So that court order has changed for us to be able to adjust that support order, right? So those are sort of things where the more information we can get out there about what the friend of the court does, what our role actually is, the better we're going to be able to actually serve. And I think where some of those frustrations that have come in over time are kind of going to get a little bit better, because you're going to go, oh yeah, that's right. I understand that you can't do that thing. So that's okay that you're not doing it, because I understand that you can't do it. So that's one of the big things. I think the other thing, and I'm not trying to I'm it's not to disparage anybody, but I think, there were days gone by then, in maybe not our office, maybe in our office, I can't speak before my time, where maybe we did some things that maybe hurt that trust relationship with between us and the community, right? And so that's one of the things that can happen. I got a good example of something that's happening like right now that can lead to frustration. Okay, so stimulus checks. So you and I talked about it last year, because the CARES Act, which happened in April of last year, said that friend of the court can take stimulus checks, or child support program can take stimulus checks, right? That gets people really frustrated. Then the second stimulus bill says nope, no tax offset for child support purposes. Everybody who gets a stimulus check gets to keep that stimulus check. But now we're finding out that that's only true for advance checks. And if you get your stimulus check as part of your tax refund, then then it will be subject to tax offset. Okay. All of this, nothing to do with the friend of the court. This is all part of the federal law. There's nothing that your local friend of the court office is doing in either situation, right? We asked for the stimulus check and we didn't try to not take it either. And that's sort of the situation where we're the face, and we're the office you can physically walk into, but we're also not responsible. There's nothing we can do for some of these other things, right?
Yeah.
So I think I'm willing to take the blame for a lot of the things that happen system wide, right? I'm the person that you can come to and say like that's wrong, and I'm like, yeah, it might be, but not anything that we can do anything about, right?
Yeah. No, that makes a good point, right? So with that, in that same vein about what you can do, right, is that you have some guys, if I could just switch and we go back to that, but you have some people who say, listen, man, I've been paying child support, I've been consistent, I've been trying to be the father that I can be, but my child's mom, bro, is not living up to her end of the bargain, right? And then you have the other side is where a guy is not paying, right? For whatever reason, and then mom will not allow him to see child because he's not paying child support. And see, what I didn't know until, I connected with you and started doing this work, that if a father does not pay child support, it doesn't constitute for the dad to not see child. Two separate things.
Exactly.
But my question, like, you can answer that, but my question is, like, what happens, man, when a dad is paying child support and he is, trying to be involved in the whole nom, and mom is not allowing him to see the child? Right. So he's just like, hey, you taking my money, you taking my stimulus, so now, I want to see my child. Nothing is being done.
Yeah.
And they're saying it, right? So
yeah. Yep. So one of the things is to understand that we do enforce parenting time orders just like we enforce child support orders. We're kind of known for enforcing child support orders, but we enforce parenting time orders too. And we have a lot of the same tools that we can enforce parenting time with as we would if for child support. Okay, so same tools, like we can suspend a driver's license if somebody is violating their parenting time order. We can do a show cause hearing, which could result in a bench warrant if somebody is violating a parenting time order. We have a lot of the similar tools for addressing parenting time violations that we do for addressing child support violations. A lot of the same tools. The law is a little bit different because of the nature of parenting time complaints. So all parenting time complaints have to be submitted in writing to the friend of the court, and then we will send that complaint to the other party, and they're given a chance to respond. Okay, and that's how the law is written. That's what the statute says, is we have to give the other person a chance to respond. So it might say, I went to go pick up, my child on Friday at 6:00. Other parent said, you're not getting the child. So then you put that in writing, you send that to the friend of the court, then we'll send that to the other party and say, please respond. Let us know, is this true or what's the story? If there's no response, we're going to order makeup parenting time. If there's a response and there's a dispute, we're going to look at, Should we be doing mediation, or should we be doing something along the lines of a show cause hearing? So we're going to look at those enforcement tools, and it's going to depend on the situation, right? When the parties are really far apart, well, mediation might not be the right answer for that family, right? If if they're kind of having a dispute over some, so like sometimes we'll have disputes over what time pickup is supposed to be, or those sorts of things. Okay, we can probably get those sorts of things taken care of with a tweak to their court order or a mediation, and we'll work with the family to try to resolve those issues. But I think, to your question, yeah, we do parenting time enforcement just like we do child support enforcement. And when we're doing parenting time enforcement, at no point are we going to say, well, we're not going to look and see what's the person paying or anything along those lines, because that's not the issue. The issue is that there's a court order there. And again, can't stress that enough. Our job is to enforce that court order, right, as it's written. So we're going to look and see, is there a court order that says what's supposed to happen? Yeah, there is. Then we're going to enforce that order.
Yeah.
And so that's the role that we play in the process, is enforcing that court order however it's written.
Yeah, I and I appreciate you sharing that, but I just hear guys, saying like, sometimes they just like, yo, that just take way too long. And, like right now I have a guy who have not seen his child in 3 months. They have a court order, the whole nine. And he is very frustrated, very, just upset. And he just feels like he's not receiving support. So he just enrolled in the program. So we're going to provide some support to him, right? And that's where the support of, the parenting education, where other fathers are there to say, hey, we with you, we walk in this, this process with you, or whatever the case. But I just know that sometimes, guys feel like, man, this takes way too long for things to change, right? And they feel like, and I'm just speaking for them so you can hear the things that they say, Tone, is that they're saying, listen, well, if I did that, they would have came to my house, I would have got locked up, or they would have garnished my checks, and the whole nine. Like, this is the things that they're saying. They just feel like a lot of times that it's not even. And then sometimes they feel like when they go before a judge, that the judge or the minister, the magistrate, I believe it is,
Referee. Yep.
The referee,
But, yeah,
right? The referee a lot of times is not hearing their voice. They a lot of times siding with the mom without getting whole story, right? And like, again, I haven't been in that position. I can only go by what they're saying, right? Being in this space. So yeah, that's some of the frustration that some of the dads are feeling. They just feel like the courts are not listening to them. They only listen to mom. And so, and honestly, some dads, man, they just say, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to fight. And who suffers, and we both know who suffers, is child.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a couple of things there that we can cover. One is what we're doing now, and what we want to continue to do is education, right? If you know that the process is going to take 28 days, you might not be happy that it's going to take 28 days, but we didn't make up that number. That's what the statute says. That's what the law in Michigan says, right? So if we tell you, look, we have to wait for a response. Once we get that response, then we can start taking action. And we let you know that in advance. Then that's one of the things that, like, hopefully that can help, right? Having a little bit of understanding about the way the law works, because again, we're not making up these rules. These rules are the ones that the legislature in Michigan has established, right? That these are the things that the processes that have to take. But hopefully, when we can get good information out there, good education information, then people know that it's going to happen. This is one of the big buzzwords is procedural justice, right? You might not like the result, but if you know that it was clear and it was consistent, and and you had a voice in the process, then at least maybe you can accept that, right? And that's one of the things from that perspective on why does it take so long, right? Because that's what the law says. right? So that's one of the things that's really important. The other thing is you're talking about was feeling like maybe you're not heard, and then I think this is another part of that's confusing about the court system, is that most of the time, if you go into the first time you go to a hearing, it's a motion hearing. The intent of a motion hearing is to decide whether we're going to have a full-blown trial down the road, right? It's like it's a pre-hearing, right? It's to decide whether we're going to have a full-blown trial. So what, and I hear this from both moms and dads who will say, I went in front of the judge or the referee and I felt like I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. And then I'll ask, well, what day of the week did you go in front of the judge or referee? And they'll say Monday. And I'll say, well, we hear motions on Monday. Motions are, there's a bunch of them stacked up all at one time. They're intended to be short hearings, 15 minutes, where the judge is going to say, yes, this should either be going for a longer trial down the road where we'll submit evidence and all that sort of stuff, or we don't have enough information to say right now, let me gather a little bit of information before I decide whether to set this for a hearing, right? So I hear that all the time where people are frustrated. But of course, that's another thing about educating everyone about how the court system works. Because if you know the first time that you go to court, and if you're going in Genesee County on a Monday, you're probably going to have just a few minutes to say your part. The other person's going to have a few minutes to say their part, and then the judge is going to make a decision about whether that gets another date down the road, right?
So park right there. So park right there. So we go to this motion. The judge make a decision at that moment, like, okay, this case right here, it should go further, or it shouldn't go further. So now, if it shouldn't go further, then the father, right? It could be the father is saying like, everything stopped right there. He didn't want to hear what I had to say, because remember, you said it's like that motion. So could it stop right there where it's just, that's the end of it? And then.
Yeah. So family law, unlike some areas of the law, isn't ever really done, right? Child support can always be changed while the child is a minor, right? So if it's charging $150 a month and now there's been something that's changed, it can always change. The same thing with custody and parenting time. As long as that child's a minor, it could always be changed. There's never like a final stamp where we say like, this is it. There's no other changes that can happen with this, right? If you have a criminal case or a civil case or something along those lines, then yeah, when the judge says this is done, that it's done, right? But there's always an opportunity to come back when there's been a change in family law. And so sometimes that's where, an understanding of the law, and it might require contacting an attorney to better understand. You and I've talked about change in custody, right? And so one of the things that'll happen is somebody will say, well, I went and I filed a motion for a change of custody. Well, there's a standard that has to be met in order for the court to consider whether they're going to change custody. And you have to meet that standard in what you've, written down in your motion in front of the judge. And then even if it meets that standard, there's a very high standard for changing the child's established custodial environment. So if the child's been living with one person for a long time, it's a big standard to be able to overcome to make it change to another parent. And that's just one of the areas of the law. And that's where kind of like it is the law, right? That's why there are attorneys out there. That's a challenge.
I have a dad. I have a dad who share with me that there is some abuse from the mom's new boyfriend, that there's some abuse in there, and in the dad, when he had him, didn't take him back. Like, hey, he called me like, yo, I just want somebody to know that I'm not taking him back because of some abuse. And I'm like, bruh, don't you do that. Right? I'm like, listen, you need to contact law enforcement. You need to contact somebody, not just telling involved dad that there's some abuse, but in this case, my man was saying how there's some abuse with this one child. He doesn't want to send them back, and you had to know that's hard for a father, man. And you a dad. It's hard for a father. Me having a child, I'm no longer with my woman, and I'm sending my child back to her, and her boyfriend is abusing my child. That's difficult. And sometimes fathers is like, yo, I'm willing to take one on the chin for that. Like, I'm willing to take
Right.
one on the chin. And that is, and I can hear the desperation in this dad's voice. I hear the desperation, in him. Like, man, I don't know what to do. I know if I keep him, I can get in trouble. But if I take him back, my child can be in danger. And that's a tough spot to be in, right? And so when you're talking about, when one parent has the custody and it's hard to change, I get it, because in this particular situation, my man is really trying to show that there is some neglect here, and it's not easy for him in this process, right? It's not easy, man. So I get what you're saying, man. It's just, this is an ongoing thing, right? It's an ongoing thing, and that's why we would continue to have these type of conversations, to equip and to educate, my listeners about, who's involved in this system, of trying to give you as much support and insight, and even, the side of the court where you're saying, hey, Shon, listen, yes, I'm enforcing, but that's my job. Like, I'm only doing, I'm the enforcer. It's just like, in the gang, right? It's just like, you got the enforcers over there. Like, this is my role. So as much as I can be, is what I'm hearing you saying, as much as that you can be that mediator for the law and for families, you're going to do as much as you can within the law to make this process as easy as possible. And that's what I appreciate about you guys, man. And I know my dad's do too, specifically ours. I can't speak for other friends of the court, other child support officers. You guys have always been supportive. You guys have removed warrants from guys, record when they've gone through the program, and, for child support versus, anyhow, you guys have been extremely supportive, and, and didn't do anything outside of your guidelines to help our fathers. So I appreciate that, man. But, this is a difficult thing. This is a difficult thing, man.
Yeah, no, and that's where one of the things that we're firm believers in is that we recognize what our role is and what our limitations are. We have a literal statute called the Friend of the Court Act that tells us what we cannot do. So we've got we've got our rules, right? That we've got our limitations, and that's where having good partnerships and being able to refer people to the organizations in this community that do the things that we can't. We don't have a job skills program, but Flint Strive does have a job skills program, right? We don't have we can't file motions for parties to change their custody, parenting time, or child support. Legal services can do that, though, and so we can connect people to legal services, or private attorneys can do that. So we can connect you to the Genesee County Bar Association if that might be the right place to connect you to. We don't have fatherhood services. We can't provide those, but InvolvedDad can provide those, so we can get connected to those services. We don't investigate neglect and abuse situations like the one father you're talking about. So we'll make sure that dad can get connected to child protective services, because that's the right place for that dad, right? So one of the things is, we like to, in a perfect world, we'd have the no wrong door, right? Like you came to come to our office and we'll connect you with the right office, right? And that's really the goal. Is we've got lists and lists and lists of resources. So if you come to our office, we're probably not what you're looking for, right? We might not be able to provide that service that you're looking for, but hopefully we can connect you with that service. And that's why relationships like you and I have, but also the relationships that we have with legal services, community resolution for mediation, and all these other community partners are so key. And we're constantly looking to be part of new partnerships. We just recently, started working with the homeless court program for anybody who might be having housing issues, so that we can make sure that child support is not an impediment for them to get housing. All we're getting involved with new programs all the time, and that's the goal, is to be able to say, you came through our door and we wish we could help you. We can't, but there is a community organization here in Genesee County that can do exactly that thing that you're looking for. And so that's one of the great things that we see in this community, is there's a lot of opportunity to help, and there are organizations that want to do that good work, and we need to connect our parents to those resources, whether it be moms or dads, and we're connecting both parents to those resources.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Tone, man. And we're gonna do this more often. We said it before, and we're gonna do this more often, man, because people need to know. And let me see it. Doreen says, just because one person has the kid, a father or mother still can file for custody if their name is on a birth certificate. Absolutely. And just to speak to that, sometime that the dad's name is not on the birth certificate, right? And that's difficult. And the biggest thing is not even the birth certificate, is more so what did you call it, Tone, that I learned a few weeks ago in our training? Not the birth certificate.
Paternity establishment, affidavit of parentage.
The affidavit of parentage, right? That's what's most important. Because once your name is on the affidavit of parentage, now you are that baby's pappy, and that's the main thing. And a lot of times guys' names are not on the birth certificate for one reason or another. He probably was not welcome to the birth, because the child and the father, the dad and the mom was not getting along at the time. So he didn't sign any of those documents. So that's where a lot of the stuff can get milky, where a lot of dads feel like they don't have a voice, they don't have a place, they don't have a dog in that fight. So that's why we are InvolvedDad, man. Everybody know, man, our mission, our motto, is that we create strong families, and we do that through fatherhood engagement. Right. So our whole purpose is to strengthen families. We want the child to have the best start. We want the child to go from striving to thriving. Right. And the way that we do that is that we engage fathers and we hold them accountable. Right. And I have some of my dads that's on here who are dope dads, who are doing phenomenal in what they do, but just needed an opportunity, just needed some support. Right. So not all dads are deadbeats, and we already know that out there, man. So we're just all about strengthening families, man. And I appreciate you guys logging on. I appreciate you guys rocking out with us. Please share it if you know somebody who needs a little more insight about, friend of the court in their case. Please, let them reach out to me, so I can get them connected to whatever resources they need. So here at InvolvedDad, man, we help with parenting education, supervised visitation, domestic violence. We're helping out, with various resources, man, and even with, child support to a degree if you're enrolled in our programming. And we have a leadership program, which 2 of the leaders are watching now. So yeah, man. So listen, this is what we do, and I appreciate you, Tone, for all the work that you guys do, everything that you guys have. You have always been 100. You have kept it 100. You have been straight up. What you said you can do, you've done, and what you said you couldn't do, you didn't do. And that's what I appreciate about you guys, man. So thank you guys for chiming in. And before we close, any last words that you would want the listeners to know, Tone, from your office, or anything you would want them to know?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, just for following up and where we might be going in the future, right? So if you guys have questions and you want to know more about information, if you want us, please comment, please get that information to Shon or put it on in the comments here
Yeah.
under the video, because I would love to make sure that when we come back next time, we're making sure that we're getting good information that's important to the families. And we've got our own Facebook and we've got our own Instagram, and we're trying to get out information that way as well. So please, if you've got comments or questions, please get those to us so that we can, if you have that question, one of the things I always say, if one person has that question, then there's several people who probably have that same question. So like, we want to get the information out there, and we want to be able to help families and educating families about the front of the court and the court system. So please let us know. Please let Shon know so that we can come back. Hopefully Shon and I can come back and get you guys information that's really relevant to you.
Awesome, man. Tone, I appreciate it, man. You're going to make the rest of your day phenomenal, man. Thank you, guys.